Hello and welcome. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Blower and I'm one of the creative writing lecturers here at Keele University. And it is an absolute delight to be here tonight with Kit de Waal. You're currently on tour, aren't you? I mean, yes. In a way, you've come from Ireland via Leamington, via the M6. Yes. And both of us have turned up with no book, which is, and not me, no glasses, but one of those things. Kit really doesn't need any introduction. 4 novels, 1 short story collection, a memoir, a YA novel. She was the editor of Common People, which was a wonderful collection of stories about growing up unapologetically working class, which was a terrific thing to be involved with. She's been a Bridport Prize winner. She's been longlisted for the Women's Prize, Novel of the Year Ireland Prize, and currently the chair of judges for the Women's Prize. And we've managed to poach you for tonight, haven't we, really? Because you're currently on tour to promote this rather lovely novel, The Best of Everything. Has anybody read it yet? Has anybody had a... Yes. Yeah. So what's going to happen is Kit's going to begin with a reading. Her and I are then going to have a natter about the book and other things about Kit's very illustrious writing career, which now spans 15, 16 years?
10.
Oh, 10. Have I gone beyond? I've aged you.
10 since I got published, but I've been writing for about 15, more than that.
And then we're going to open it up to you guys for questions, because I'm sure you all have something to ask. Over to you.
Over to me. Okay, great to be here, by the way. I can't see you properly because I'm wearing reading glasses. I have to do that. And I refuse the varifocal route. So this book is about somebody called Paulette and the things that happened to her. It starts off in 1972. Midnight. Paulette is still awake. A thin, freezing wind slips through an inch of open window and makes the curtains dance. When the room is cool, Denton sleeps heavy and won't feel the weight of her head on his chest or the leg she drapes over his, running the sole of her foot from his knee to his ankle. She pulls one of his arms around her shoulders like a fur stole and nestles in, skin on skin. The smell of Denton is pure man, sweat, soap and sex. Bonfire night comes Saturday. Paulette's going to ask Denton if they can go to the big display in town and watch the rockets and Catherine wheels making patterns in the sky. They could eat candy floss and toffee apples and mingle with the crowd. He could wear the good leather driving gloves she got him last week. The thing is, Denton never likes to make plans too far in advance. Says he doesn't know his shifts and he doesn't like to let her down at the last minute. There again, Saturday is only 3 days away, so Paulette is hoping. She feels a warm slick of sweat run off her breast and suddenly she's too hot. She doesn't sleep so good when Denton stays over because the man takes up more than his own half of the bed. And anyway, she likes to make the most of their time together. She slips from under the blankets and shucks on her dressing gown, the one he bought her for Christmas, the one he didn't even get a chance to wrap, so she saw the price tag. Paulette had to pretend she didn't notice because the thing wasn't that expensive. But she had to remember they were saving. A house one day, semi-detached, car on the drive, flowers in the front garden, on a nice quiet road, grass on the verge, and street lights that worked. That's the plan. They're 1.5 years into it with a couple more to go, and before long, she'll have everything she wants. Patience, Paulette. She stands at the window to catch a little cool breeze and parts the curtains for a splash of moonlight on Denton's face. How can a man have beautiful eyes even when they're closed? High forehead, close-cut hair and skin oiled so slick it shines. Yes, Paulette looks the man over like she's searching for disease, but all she finds is things that makes her love him more. She's pulled back to the window by a noise in the garden next door. New neighbour putting her rubbish in the bins. It's late to be up when you've got children. A white woman, about Paulette's age, red hair in plaits on top of her head, Irish or something. Not a smiling kind of a person, but then again she's got one baby and one toddler and no man as far as Paulette can tell. Some people might get funny about the amount of noise coming out of that house day and night. But there's something about the cry of a baby that twists at Paulette's 29-year-old womb. Thank you.
I'm just going to borrow this because I wanted to start by asking you. I'm terrible. One of the first things I do when I get a book is to read the acknowledgements.
So do I.
Do you do that?
So do I. I love it. I love
know
the
I do.
acknowledgements.
Just see if anyone's thanked me.
Yeah.
You say here, from minor characters in another work, Paulette and Cornelius grew and grew until this story became theirs, and I had to give them centre stage. It took some time to see them clearly. And that really resonates with me, is that we have these characters that emerge in other stories, don't they? And then all of a sudden they seem to kind of find their own feet and walk somewhere else. So what happened there?
It was brutal, I have to admit. So I'd written a complete book, 6 characters, 80,000 words. And I knew it was shit. I knew it didn't work. But I was just like, what I'm not doing is starting again. So I've got to make this work. So the way, you'll know. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's that. I'll change that. I'll change that. And you sort of cobble it together. And all the time, it's like working with 2 jigsaw puzzles. Yeah. You are never going to make a good picture. Never. Yeah. So I sent it to my editor, and she was just like, And I said, doesn't work, does it? She went, no. Yeah. And I said, it's that, isn't it? She went, yes. Yeah. I knew. Yeah. I was just really reluctant, and I also did not want to start again. Yeah. So I knew it was Paulette, even though she's the most humble, ordinary, out of all the 6 people, she was probably the most minor character. And Cornelius was a brand new baby in this other work. So I managed to, I think I got about 20, maybe 15,000 words that I could keep and started again. Yeah. And I knew it, as soon as I started writing the second story, I was like, yeah, that's right. So I just had to, big girl knickers and do it.
Yeah, it's like an endurance test, isn't it?
Oh, it was
You just know, though, don't you? Yeah. Do you want to just give us a quick, in a nutshell, about what this novel is? Because aside of Alexa, who has read it, just to give people an idea of what it's about, and then, because I don't want to give any spoilers, but then, I can sort of direct questions.
Sure. So it's a book about Paulette. She's 29, starts in 1972, as you've just heard. She's in love. She's in love with this guy who works away. And Paulette, she would describe herself as ordinary. She's the person, like if you have a party, she's in the kitchen. She's collecting the plates before you've finished eating. She's washing them up to save time in the morning. She's that kind of a person, very much in the background, very humble. She wants what most people want. She wants to be loved. She wants to give love. She wants to have a baby. She wants to get married if she can. She wants a modest house. She's an auxiliary nurse at an inner city hospital. She wants to keep her job. Everything she wants is doable. It's nothing out of the ordinary because she thinks she's not out of the ordinary. And it's not a spoiler to tell you that chapter 2, her boyfriend dies. And it's really about Paulette navigating her life without him and whether or not she can do that. And also the people that she meets along the way that completely change her life and whether she can continue being the kind, ordinary person that she wants to. And she's sorely tried. Oh, that was loud. She's sorely tried, but she comes to this chapter where she's got to make a very big decision about whether her kindness extends to people that actually don't deserve it.
Yeah. Thank you. So Paulette, who's larger than life, but
Yes.
then within this little life, she lives such a little life,
Yes.
doesn't she, really? One of her character traits, which we sort of heard in the reading there, is this idea that she's got this meticulous planning, hasn't she?
Yes.
She's got it all planned out.
Yes.
And with this love of her life, Denton. But in fact, I thought you were going to read it because it's on page 3. One of the things he first says to her, because he's a complete opposite, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, today is all anybody's got.
Yes.
And that really struck me because I thought, from a writer's point of view, I thought, oh, foreshadowing. But also, I thought that's really clever because we've got this woman who's got everything meticulously planned and him who's living day to day.
Yes.
As much as that meticulous planning made me think of your spreadsheets that I know you do
Yes.
for each novel, how did that this kind of idea come about of this focusing upon how we live our lives, and that we've got somebody who's just going, I'm going to do this, this, this and this.
Yes.
And then we've got somebody flying by the seat of their pants.
Yes.
And then flying by the seat of their pants dies.
Yes.
And then in a way, it's role reverse, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So with Paulette, really, I had the character in the other novel, and in the character in the other novel was really focused on her being a nurse.
Yeah.
And so she just had this sort of nothing role within the novel. And I really wanted to explore, to get under her, because actually there are no ordinary people. I don't believe in ordinary people. Everybody's extraordinary. Yeah. Everyone's got desires and loves and dreams and hopes. And it reminded me, in fact, I heard about this Danish word, probably some people here know, called sonder. Have you heard it? So it's the realisation that we all come to at some point in our lives that everyone has got an interior life. Yeah. And it was illustrated by this man who wrote an article about it, and he said he took his daughter to school for the first day, so she's 5, and they stand at the playground, and all these other children are running around, and she looks at her dad and she says to him, do all these children think they're the main one? Because she's been the main one. And she realised in that moment that everyone's the main one. Main character energy, I think it's called, down with the kids. So it's about everybody is their own main character. And I wanted to explore Paulette actually not being the B, C, D list character. But what is that ordinary person? What are the hopes and dreams? How are those hopes and dreams destroyed, and how do you build yourself back up? And there are some people in our lives that are larger than life, and they are main character, and they think they're the main character, and we think they're the main character. But actually everybody is. And so this person with these small hopes and dreams and this little council house in this little estate and this job where she gets overlooked, the hopes and dreams are just as valid and just as important, more important, and should be more important to her. She's made Denton her main character. And then when he's gone, she's left on her own. How do I take centre stage now?
Because I think it's really interesting because, because what it's also introducing is this element of time, and time for me was quite a big theme in it. But mainly in the sense that, it says in the blurb that this is a novel about kindness. And actually, the more I was reading it, the more I was thinking, it's more actually about the unkindness of time.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That time is unkind, but then time can also be kind.
Yes.
And, I mean, do you think, was that a kind of message that you were sort of working with, do you think? Or is that just something I perhaps read into it?
I absolutely never have a message. No. So when I'm writing a novel, my first thought is, please God, don't be bored by my book.
Well, that's very true,
and if you buy it, please don't think you've wasted your money. They're my first things. I think an author, to have respect for the reader, should be entertaining. If it's fiction. If it's non-fiction, of course, it's got to be informative and all the other things. With fiction, my view is entertain me. You'll be reading this book instead of watching the telly or instead of seeing your friends or whatever. So let it be not a waste of time. Even if you read it on holiday and leave it on the lilo for the next person, you don't even take it home, just that you think, oh, that was good. Yeah. That's the first thing. The messages, I think, come out afterwards. All the time I'm writing, I'm just thinking, don't be bored, don't bore them, don't make them write you a horrible review on Amazon. So, you know, that's my first thing. It's like, just let this be a great story. And then the themes come out afterwards. And normally they're not themes I wouldn't send my book to anyone and say, here's a book about kindness. That's what my editor says. That's what my agent says. That's what critics say. But I just say it's a book about Paulette. And if it happens to be about kindness or time or whatever, then that's for other people to overlay on the story.
It's a life story, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you know, she does age in the book, and you know, so we do travel through time with her.
Yes.
But also, what we're kind of seeing is this woman growing because of grief.
Yes.
Isn't it? I mean, it is a study of grief, I thought, as well, more than anything, because we've got a woman who is, I mean, in a way, she loses a lot.
Yes.
She's already mourning an upbringing in St. Kitts. She's mourning her grandmother. Do you know what I mean? And so there's all this loss that she's continually processing. And but it's much more uplifting than it.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's very much so.
It's very. I think it's very redemptive, and there's a lot of warmth in it. But what she actually has is she has to deal with the loss of her dreams. It's much more about the loss of hope than it is about, you know, obviously she loved Denton, she thought she was going to have children, blah, blah, blah. But she pinned so much hope on it. And other things that happened to her, it's like, so that's not going to happen. And so that's not going to happen. And it's the loss of the happy ending, really. And people often say that with, you know, if you lose someone, it's not just the loss of the person, but it's what they represented. They might have represented old age. They might have represented children. They might have all of those dreams were tied up with that person. So what you lose, apart from the physicalness of the person, you lose. Physicalness is probably not a word. Physicality, physical presence, whatever. Physicalness, whatever. You know, you lose that, but you lose much more an interior sense of things. I could counter. I can talk about that, like even getting divorced. So I got divorced when I was 55. And what I experienced, apart from all the shit about getting divorced, was what now for my future? What now with those years that I thought were mapped out and we were going to do this and we were going to do that? And that, I think, for me was more difficult to cope. You can get over the loss of the person, but the day-to-day living on your own or the snatched away future, that's hard. And you do write, I think, and you do have a kind of reputation for it, I think, as well, that you write very unapologetically. Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You're not afraid of channeling that level of authenticity. Where things are crap, you know, and really kind of getting to that raw emotion. Are those difficult bits to write, do you think, or do you draw from experience?
I think I do draw from experience. I know that sometimes when I'm writing, I'm thinking, God, that's terrible. Or I'm chuckling to myself. You know, sometimes I'm laughing to myself, this is great. I hope everyone else thinks it's great. But I have to be amused. Is it Robert Frost that said, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader? And it's true. If you are not moved by what you're writing, you're really taking the reader for a sucker then. You're saying, this isn't actually funny, but they'll write. They'll laugh. This isn't really sad, but they'll think it is. I have to believe this is sad. This is sad to me. This is funny to me. This is scary to me. You have to invest bits of yourself, your own life experience, your own belief system. If that's not in there, it's disrespectful, I think, to the reader.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, I mean, that experience, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed in this book as well is that religion does play a big part in it. And I don't know if any of you have read Kit's memoir, Without Warning and Only Sometimes, and the childhood the very religious childhood that you believed you were going to die in 1975. It was Jehovah's Witness, you know, your mum. That is still... I find this is resonating, actually. The more that you write, I can hear it in all the stories coming to the fore.
Yes, definitely. So Paulette was brought up as a Christian, as lots of West Indian people of her time and generation would have been. And even when, and she doesn't live by Christian morals in the book, but if you've been brought up as a Christian, particularly fundamentally as Christian, it stains you. Yeah. It's there. You cannot get away. I don't believe in God. Yeah. I would call myself an agnostic, atheist, whatever. But there are certain things and for example, a certain rhythm of hearing the Bible, and I love hymn. I live next door to a church. And on Sunday, when they start singing, "There is a green hill far away," I'm like, oh, that's lovely. You know, it's so deep in my psyche, religion, and loads about it I don't like. So much about religion I don't like. And then you cannot get away from the fact that there are the things that say, love your neighbour as yourself. You can't get away from the truth of that, or the beauty of that, and the simplicity of that, whatever religion you are, or no religion. Yeah. So that's what Paulette's got. She's got that deep in her psyche, thy will be done, which I don't believe, or love your neighbour as yourself, whatever, don't steal, don't do this. They're inside her, she can't get away from them.
No, which makes her terribly forgiving.
Yes.
But also a giver. Yes. Isn't she? And and I kind of found that she's showing all this kindness, but she's not always kind to herself. There was pages of it where I was thinking, oh my God,
Look after yourself. And that is certainly the way I was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness. You are nothing, really. Your whole life is about giving, denying of the self, denying any desires whatsoever, unless it's to go out knocking doors. You couldn't have a birthday. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to have birthdays, because then the focus is on you, and you are nothing. Yeah. So Paulette doesn't go that bad, but that was my experience of growing up as a Christian, is that you deny any desires you have. Any desires. It's all about the worship of God. And then your desires just to stay alive is so that you can worship God a bit more.
Yeah. And she's governed by these beliefs, isn't she?
Yes.
But at the same time, she's kind of got this, she's yearning for her culture.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes.
And another, I think, trait that, we see a lot in your work is showing love through food.
Yes.
And I know you credit your sister at the end for all the culinary recipes. But, and it was a primary focus of the memoir, your contribution to Common People was about food.
Yes.
Does it always feel like it's got to be something that comes into these books as part of the characters? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. I mean, when I was brought up, and we were, a word that you don't hear very often now, we were poor. We were poor children, and I describe myself as working class. I wasn't working class. I didn't get to be working class. Yeah. We were sub-working class. We were immigrant family, immigrant father, immigrant mother, very poor, 5 children living in a 3-bedroom terraced house with a lodger and looking after 5 children. So it was chaos, poverty, very rich in lots of other ways, but certainly very, very poor. And food was scarce, to say the least. So my childhood was about we very, very often didn't have an evening meal. That would have been normal. Yeah. So when we did eat, and we had no Christmas. I nearly said it was Christmas. We had no Christmas because we were Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. But when we did eat, it was like, wow, festival time. Yeah. And still now, if I go and see my brothers and sisters, or if they come to see me, they will sort of walk into my house and open the fridge as they're talking. You okay? How are you? How's the kids? And they're looking in the fridge. It's like a sort of, are you okay? Yeah. Have you got enough to eat? Yeah. We don't even know we do it. Yeah. I didn't realise anyone did it until I got married. And my husband said, what the fuck's with your friends? Come in. Hi, so are you okay? Look at the orange juice, put it back. Yeah. It's a weird thing that we are so, in our family, food is a big deal. Yeah. And it's the way that we showed love to one another.
Yeah. But it's part of that cultural representation, isn't it? It's part of the, obviously you write an awful lot about race as well, but there is this nurturing side to it.
Yes.
And just talking about the racial element to it, what I noticed about this book, and perhaps it's unfair to compare it to Leon. Leon sort of sprawled out of the household into the city, whereas this was very much a cultural study, I suppose, of this woman within her own home.
Yes.
It felt like there was very little movement.
Yes.
And any journey she did take was very small, to the off licence,
Yes.
to the park.
And then she came home.
And then she came home, or she falls in love with a bus driver.
Yes.
You know, but that goes that journey comes back.
Yes.
All intentional,
Yes.
within four
Yes.
walls.
Absolutely, because that's where she felt safe and that's her domain. It's also her sense of pride. I mean, one of the things she talks about in the book is, I turn the mattress and I do this on a Friday, and I'll clean the so-and-so and I'll scour the pots, because this is her domain. This is where she's important.
Yeah.
And also for any immigrant, wherever you're from, food is a massive connection to your home, to your memories. The smell, anyone that's from any sort of immigrant community will know, you smell some food and you go, oh yeah, and it's more than the smell of the food. It's more than the taste of the food. It's a connection with who you are, where you belong, where you feel safe. And it's one of the first things, when my dad came over from St. Kitts, so one of the first things he did is try to find rice. Yeah. And he found pudding rice, obviously. And he made pudding rice with meat when he met my mum. Yeah. And she was like, are you joking? Yeah. Rice, pudding and lamb. Yeah. How does that go together? But he was so keen to try and capture what he'd left, which he didn't want to leave, had to for economic circumstances. And a lot of immigrant communities, that's what they'll do as soon as they come over. And that's what Paulette does. Yeah. She wants that connection with home through plantain and rice and peas and lamb and chicken and all of these recipes that I don't actually cook, but my sister Tracy, who gave me the recipes, she cooks them. So
it is this insularity, and I think that's what I really enjoy about this work, is the fact that it doesn't want to make it doesn't want a big message. It's not about a big meaning. It is just watching her cope, isn't it, in a way?
Yes.
And you're rooting for her, and which we often do with underdogs. But I wouldn't even call her that, because she knows who she is, and she's not afraid of, that her femininity and her sexuality, which again I think is that unapologetic side, isn't it? Yes. But at the same time, there's the contrast where she's a mother. She doesn't become a wife.
No.
But she's a nurse. So there's those very gendered positions, but she's also very much surrounded by men.
Yes. And she would never describe herself as a feminist. Never.
No,
she wouldn't even get that concept. She's not interested in any kind of politics or liberation. She's very content within the confines of what society gave her at the time. However, she does some extraordinary things with that power that she's got, that feminine power, that mothering that she does that goes way beyond her family, not just to the people that deserve it, but to people that don't deserve it. And she's extremely powerful within, she wouldn't say she was powerful, but she is. She knows. She goes way and beyond what she has to do.
Well, she does, because, another thing that I thought was very well managed in the book is this idea of emptiness and fullness. Do you know what I mean? And I know that you plan meticulously.
Yes.
We've talked about your spreadsheets before, and I don't know how you do it. I really don't. But what do you do? Do you just sort of put in, this is what the theme is, and this is the subject of this chapter? And
never put themes in.
Never do that.
So what Lisa's talking about is I do a spreadsheet for every book.
It's only because I'm jealous. I really do.
And obviously it didn't work on the last book. But anyway, I do a spreadsheet on the book, and I will colour code it, and it will be what happens, any seeding that needs to go on, and also who's in the scene. Who's important, whose scene, if you had to attribute this scene to somebody, and what's it saying. I never do themes. I think, like I say, that emerges afterwards, but it has to be change. Things have to, I'm not going to have a whole chapter about describing a meadow. That's I can't bear it. So it's got to be something that's interesting, something changes, something happens. And if nothing happens, that chapter has to go. It has to be propelled, interesting, moving you forward. And then when I've got the spreadsheet done, which will probably take me 6 months, I disregard it. I never look at it when I'm writing the book, because I know it.
You know it,
so it's in my head, and I know it really, really well. the last book with the 6 characters was 3 books. Now I know it was 3 books. That's why I could save 20%.
Yeah.
And I had crammed them into one.
Yeah.
And that spreadsheet should have been 3 spreadsheets. And I know now what I did wrong, but yeah, the spreadsheet let me down. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you kind of, I mean, would you say as well, because I mean, you know, you often get classed as a working class writer.
Yes.
Working class writing.
Yes.
You know, it's things that we tend to fight against. Me, you know, me and you've been doing it a long time in that sense. It's not, I mean, the class is massive in this, but it's not actually featuring in any of the kind of blurbs and everything. So we're starting to make a difference.
Absolutely.
To get away with it.
It's really interesting to me that if somebody writes a book and it's set in Liverpool, if you look in the Times or the Observer, whoever, it's a Liverpool novel. They never say that when it's London.
No, they don't know.
They never say, or if it's about middle class, this is a middle class novel. They never say that.
Yeah.
It's like you can have that free.
Yeah.
As soon as you come out of it being a middle class novel, out of London, it's got to have the label of difference.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we get to the point where they're not saying this is a working class novel, this is a black novel, this is a Liverpool novel, that's massively progress, because it means we're looking at the content of the story. We're not saying in relation to London, it's a Liverpool, Keele, Newcastle novel. It's just going to be a novel.
Yeah.
And one of the things I absolutely hate is when it gets labelled as not being London, not being about middle class, or, you know, not a crime or a crime thriller. Those sort of labels are very unhelpful.
They are. They have, and they have been, haven't they? In this idea
absolutely.
that, you know, or it's or they'll say characters on the margins, you know, and things like that. And it's like, no, like we say, this is an ordinary life being lived out, and her story is really interesting.
Absolutely. And most of this country is not middle class.
No,
you know, there's ordinary people.
Yeah.
Working class people now are, you know, have got 2 cars, do work, do go on holiday.
Yeah.
It's not the flat cap and the whippet that people think working class lives are there.
Yeah.
Most of the country live these lives. So we can't use that label now without it being a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, yeah. Just kind of moving, just before we see if there's any questions from the audience. I was trying to think the last time we did this, which was a couple of years ago at Bridport, wasn't it? When you were promoting your memoir. But the competition, but the Bridport Prize and all of that, you are an ambassador for that now.
Yes.
And you've introduced a new category.
Yes.
For women over 60.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But I just thought, would you just give a little bit of advice, because we've got some writers here, I'm sure, about the competition platforms.
Yes.
As a way, I mean, because really it did kind of sort of kickstart your publications, didn't it?
Yes, definitely. When I first started writing, I started writing flash fiction and short stories, flash fiction being 250 words. And I would send those off. Again, I had a spreadsheet. And I would send off my stories, and I'd write down the Bridport Prize, 10th of January, the title, and then the result. And I used to fill in the result. And I would send, it really was, null point. I would, if you saw that, so one year, and I can remember, it's 2015, I won 2 competitions. I think I came second in 2 good competitions, and I was longlisted for others. Yeah. And it looks like, oh my God, she's really good. How fantastic. Yeah. If you saw how many I sent off, that was like 2% strike mark. But it looked fabulous. And the reason I was sending off so many things to competitions is because I loved the sensation of thinking someone's going to read my work that isn't my mom that's going to say it's great. It's not your mate. It's not my sisters, all of whom have to tell me I'm a genius. These are people that owe me nothing. And they might say it's good. And that's why I was sending my work off. And for me, it was absolutely key to the shot in the arm that you need as a writer, because you get so many rejections. It was confirmation I was on the right. It's a way of finding your voice. You're on the right road. It's also, you know, you might go to the award ceremony, you might meet other writers. It's for me, it was key. I know some people hate it, and you cannot get away from the fact that sometimes it's 10 quid to enter.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the year I won quite a few things, I was spending a lot of money, £10, £5, £3, and the hope, and, you know, going to sometimes going to events.
Yeah.
But it was really important for me. I think it's really important to enter your stuff for competitions. It makes you polish it. It makes you look at it again. It makes you take it seriously. And you're saying to yourself, this matters to me.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby. It's not flower arranging. This is nothing wrong with flower arranging, by the way. I do flower arranging. But this is really important to me. You are saying that to yourself by holding your work up to scrutiny.
Yeah, yeah. And the category for the women over 60s.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting. And then I also saw on social media people going, why?
Yeah, yeah. And why? Because the publishing industry, as you know, is absolutely obsessed with youth.
It is, yeah.
It's obsessed with the bright, shiny, new thing. And they're thinking, publishing industry is thinking, we can have a long career out of this 27-year-old writer. You know, she might be writing for 40 years, so this is going to be great for us. If you're 60, it will probably be less than 40 years. Nevertheless, what older writers, many working class writers come to writing late. And they come to writing late because they are working bloody hard until later on in their life when things might get easier. Things, you know, you might be able to get a bit of time back. Maybe your kids have grown up. So working class people come late. People that sometimes have got, you know, many jobs come to writing late. People come to writing late for a variety of reasons, and I don't think they should be penalised for that. Also, speaking personally, thank God I never published anything when I was 27.
I always think
I had nothing to say. I really believed the world was black and white and there was right and wrong. There is no right and wrong. There is no black and white, I believe. Everything's shades of grey. I was cocky. I would have been shit. I would never have taken advice. And I'm glad there's nothing out there that I wrote before I was 40, even then. So I'm one of these people. I needed to grow into myself. I needed to grow into my voice. And I think there's loads of people like that need to grow into it. And let's not penalise people who don't come to writing until they're 60.
No. And also you've been judging the Women's Prize.
Yes.
How many books have you had to read?
Probably maybe 98 or something like that.
In how long?
September to February, maybe August to February. It's just heaven. I mean, what an excuse for doing nothing else but reading. Can't do that, I'm afraid. Can't come out. I'm an introvert. Can't come out with you. Sorry. Reading for the Women's Prize. Can't do that. Reading for the Women's Prize. Can't wash up. Reading for the Women's Prize. It was bliss. And what was really interesting about it is here was a masterclass in what women are thinking, because the subjects were just so wild. It was, this is who women are in 2025. This is what we think. These are our hopes and dreams. These are our fears. This is this weird trip here. This is this sad story here. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. And it got me out of a bit of a reading slump, because I have to read a lot for work. And I'd stopped almost reading for pleasure. This was reading for pleasure. It was just incredibly, I mean, massive privilege and incredibly enjoyable.
And as you say, I suppose now what you're kind of seeing is the shape of women's writing today, you know, and how far it's come. And, you know, you and I were chatting about Miranda July's All Fours, which has made the shortlist. And, you know, just how unapologetic that is and how, well, it is quite Marmite, isn't it? I mean, but you and I love it. But it's just this idea, isn't it, that people are... Or women are stretching themselves now and going beyond.
Absolutely. And the whole point of the Women's Prize, set up 30 years ago, was to shine a light on the brilliance of women's writing. Women will still do, and much worse years ago, have less column inches. They have less book reviews in serious press. They have, you know, whenever you talk, whenever women's writing used to be, it's not so bad now, talked about it was the domestic. A man's going to write the big American novel, but a woman's going to write about motherhood. You know, that sort of polarity, if that's your experience, but men have got the big ideas. And that's obviously no longer the case. And the Women's Prize has been instrumental in bringing women's fiction to the forefront and saying, we're writing about the serious matters of the day, as well as motherhood, as well as other, you know, things only to do with women. But we have got things to say about life.
Yeah. Which Paulette does. I think that's the thing. Yes. And even though she's not necessarily telling them directly to anybody else, and largely because she's surrounded by men.
Yes.
But occasionally she has this lovely relationship with Maggie, her next door neighbour, who's utterly chaotic and lives in the present. She doesn't get it at all. But it's a beautiful relationship, isn't it?
Yes.
And I was so glad for that friendship all the way through it.
Yes, yes.
It was really lovely.
It is their wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom between them.
There is, massively so.
But it's throwaway. You know, she doesn't say, here's a really big thought, or here's a really wise thought. She just says, well, it's not every pain you can see with your eyes. You know, she'll say something very profound, but it's a quiet way that she speaks.
But it is that thing, isn't it, of often women will do that. I used to say, like with my nan, she was one of the wisest people, but it was a scruffy wisdom. You know, I couldn't quite articulate it, and that's what I kind of saw in that book. Okay, should we pass it over to the lovely audience if anybody's got any questions for Kit?
Be brave.
I know. You can ask her anything. There's somebody at the back there. Hello.
Who's first? Who are we going with first?
It was sorry, where did I go? Oh, was it Ruth?
Is it Ruth?
Yeah, okay, and then there's somebody I can't quite see. Sorry.
At the back.
I didn't know you were going to ask me to sing, but it's sort of two questions. Is that?
Yes,
I've got it. I've got the microphone now, I suppose. The first one is that I love the way that you write children, and from the perspective of children, I think it's so easy to do it badly, and you do it so well. So I'd love to just know a little bit about how that is for you, and also I'd like to know if you ever think about what happened to Leon when he grew up.
Right, so writing children is quite easy for me because I'm very childish, very juvenile, I've never really grown up, and my childhood was, though it was a very, very difficult childhood, it was full of joy, and I was a watcher of a child. So I remember things from my childhood really, really well. You know, in fact, like in every family, there's a custodian of the memories. You know, so I'm the person that my sister will be, you know, Auntie Margaret, how old was she when that happened? You know, I'm the person that keeps the family secrets or memory. So I think that's why I write children well, because I remember very, very well what it was to be a child. And as for Leon, the second novel, I'm writing that at the moment, about what happens to him when he grows up. So I will say nothing. Nothing. Apart from the book starts when he's 37. That's it. That's all. Thank you. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes?
It's similarly, there's sort of two questions related, though. I haven't read the novel yet, but I'm looking forward to it. With Paulette, I was wondering, you've talked about using yourself to create your characters and so forth and recreate their experiences, but with Paulette, was there a model, or were there models in real life? That's one question. And then the second one, it's related, so I'll say it at the same time. In talking about the novel, you've given us quite a lot of backstory. I feel like I already know quite a lot about Paulette, and I'm wondering how much we get of her life before she's 29. You know, we start at 29. Sorry, it's actually going to turn out into 3 questions. The final one is a sort of silly question in a way, but I'd still like to know your answer. How much of her backstory isn't in the novel? You know, is there an enormous amount of her still in your head that we'll never know about?
Yeah. So, right, let me go back.
So first one is there a model?
Sure. The first bit about the model. Paulette's modelled on lots of women that I knew. My mother was an auxiliary nurse, so I knew the nuts and bolts of her job and how tired you get and the things that she used to do and how she felt when she came home. So that was my mother was the model for her nursing, and the people that populated my childhood very much were the model for Paulette. I know so many people. In fact, a couple of people said to me, I know Paulette. I know a Paulette. Her backstory, she was brought up in St Kitts. This is in the novel. And I do speak about, there's a couple of chapters of her being in St Kitts and how that shaped her. And the immigrant experience of coming to England, very similar to my father's experience of coming here and being shocked at the grey. I mean, genuinely shocked that everything seemed to be the same colour, because obviously he came from piercing light from morning till night, and sunshine and whatever colours were magnified just because of the saturation of light. And he used to, we used to say, oh, it's sunny. It's sunny, Dad, sunny outside. You just look at us like you don't know anything, because he missed that all of his life. So I definitely used that experience of my father's failure to come to terms with the fact that he lived here in this darker country. And what's missing from Paulette's childhood, which was the last bit of your story, Paulette's backstory, is really nothing that you need to know. It's all in her, the representation of her at the moment. Who she is now is shaped by her childhood, but you would definitely understand that when you understand her. Thank you. Gentleman here.
Thank you for your talk. It's similar to the question that was been asked. I was going to ask you, what was Paulette's motivation from carrying on, even for her to be who she is and who she was? Because there has to be something driving her to keep going. So I want to find out the motivation for that character to persist and to meet men or to meet Danton, and in passing on, and basically she's trying to find her own path. So there has to be something more to her to want to carry on rather than just giving up.
Yes. And really, I think her motivation for carrying on is the same as the motivation we all have for carrying on, which is your desire to be happy, whatever that happiness looks like. Paulette's dreams are quite modest. She wants a house, a baby, a partner. Some people their dreams might be, I want a 6-bedroomed house and a Ferrari. Whatever your dream is, people carry on because they're driven by their desires. And although Paulette's are quite modest, they're very, very important to her, obviously. And I think we all have, whatever the shape we put on our dreams, we head towards them and get derailed, obviously, when our dreams don't come true, or when tragedy strikes, or where we just, go off onto a different path. Sometimes our own choice, sometimes the choice thrust upon us. But I think we are all motivated by the desire to be happy. Whatever we term happiness, whether it's riches or a person or a job or a career or a child, we are all of us motivated to be happy and have an easier life, I think. So Paulette's no different. She's motivated by her desire to have those things that she really invested in, she really thought she was going to have at the beginning, and she wants that to come true for her, and it gets difficult.
Do you mind mind if I just follow up?
Yes?
Wouldn't it be more of a conditioning of an environment rather than actually motivation? If you're thrown in a pool of water, you have to swim. Mm-hmm. That's more like condition I need to survive, rather than my motivation to get out of water.
Yeah, I think, speaking about my own childhood, you know, and the community that I came from, it's very easy to have your dreams thwarted, and it's very easy to say, well, this isn't going to work for me because of the environment I come from or because of the things that happen to me. But, you know, human beings have an enormous capacity for making the best of, or for just going, whatever's happened there, I'm going to get out from under it. I'm going to survive. And without talking about the plot of the book too much, Paulette has a number of setbacks, some created entirely by her own mistakes, and some of it thrust upon her, and she just continues. I mean, continuing through a difficult life has to be the journey of being a human being, because I don't believe there are many people that have had such a charmed life that they never have to overcome anything. Some people have to overcome the most horrendous things. All of us have to overcome something. Sometimes that something is ourselves, dealing with something inside of us that we're trying to rectify or modify or mitigate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Really, this is asking you about what you've just been talking about. You described getting to a point in your book and knowing it doesn't work. What makes you go on? And is it success? So you think, oh, but I've done this before? Or is each book like a new path, a new step for you?
Every book feels like the first book. There is no sense that, oh, well, Leon was a success. I'm going to waltz through this, if only. You still meet the blank page with enormous trepidation, sometimes more, I think, if you've had a successful book. You feel the weight of that success. You know, you don't want to fail. Certainly when I was writing the original book, The Six People, I can remember sitting down and just thinking, this is so hard. Why is this so hard? When's it going to get easy? And I hear from writers that have got 20 books, exactly the same. It's different in that the plot's different and what it takes from you is different. But it's the same in that you still have to follow. There's 3 acts to every novel. Sometimes say there's 5, but there's a number of acts. There's points that you have to meet. There's going to be dialogue. There's going to be description. There's going to be characterization. There's going to be highs. The character is going to meet an adversary of some sort, sometimes the adversaries themselves. There are these key components of every single novel, and you are going to have to do it. You have to do the work every single time. And the first book, what made me carry on is that I just knew when I'd finished it, I knew it was a disaster, clearly, but I also knew Paulette was great. She was just great. And every writer will tell you the same thing, that it's harder to not write than to write. If I said tomorrow, and I know this is the same as Lisa, if I said, look, I'm just not going to write anymore, I can't do it. I've had so many rejections, I can't do it, I can't write. That's harder than writing, and writing's really hard. But when you have this, I'm not going to call it a calling because that is pretentious, but when you have this desire that this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, and you decide to deny it, it's awful, because you just start writing anyway in your head. That blue chair, you start, you just start doing it. It's true, isn't it?
It is. Well, you see stories everywhere.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a way of kind of crafting it, and then you think, oh, I'm just going to go and write that on there.
Or
do you keep like little notebooks in your bag?
I don't, but I do. If I'm sitting in a cafe, cafes are the best.
Yeah, well,
the best.
Good
so if you sit in a cafe and you see somebody or a woman sit down opposite a man, and she'll say, so, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
What is that?
You shift up.
And you move, and you're like, tell me. Or they're not speaking. I mean, not speaking is actually the best.
That's the best, yeah.
Because the body language is doing the speaking.
It's true,
The picking up of the cup, the looking away.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How much lipstick is on the rim. and things
Exactly.
like that,
Or he's looking down like this and she's looking
know,
at him,
I know.
or the
We're
other way
starting to write
around.
a story now,
It's an
Susan.
entire, it's a world. It's a world. And I always give this example of actions, silent actions. Does anyone know the film Brief Encounter?
Yeah.
Right, so Brief Encounter, the film. You know the scene in, so just for people that don't know it, Brief Encounter is about a married man and a married woman, and they meet at a train station and they fall in love and nothing happens, but this is a deep, deep, deep connection. And because it's so painful for both of them, the man says, look, I'm going to go away, so we never have to meet again, because you're unhappy and I'm unhappy and it's never going to work. So they're going to have one last meeting in the cafe at the train station where they met. And the whole book, the whole film is coming to this moment where this is their goodbye. It's like 2 minutes from the end. This is their goodbye. Oh my God. So they sit down opposite each other in this cafe, and what's he going to say? What is she going to say? How do they feel? And just as he's about to go, I'll love you forever, this friend of hers sees them. Oh, hello, how are you? And she's gabbing, and they're looking at each other like, our moment is ruined. And then his train comes and he's got to leave her. And it's like, he can't say anything because of the friend. So he puts his hand on her shoulder, and the hand, that's got to do all the work. Yeah, it's got to do all the work. It's got to say, I love you forever. I'll never forget you. Isn't it terrible? It's the most, I've ruined the film if anyone wants to watch it. But it's the most beautiful, no dialogue whatsoever. One hand on a shoulder is the entire film, is the entire speech, is the entire I will love you forever. And those moments in books are what you absolutely go for. You go for those moments that are high tension, high drama, but sometimes silent. The Remains of the Day, another book that does it so beautifully. Tiny moments, silent moments, and there's a world in there. And as a writer, that's what you see everywhere. You see those moments everywhere, and you try and get them on the page. Repression. The unsaid, I call it the unsaid. It's what is not said is as interesting as what is said.
Yeah. I think we've got time for one more question, if anybody would like to take the opportunity. Yes, you could shout.
Go on, shout.
Yes, just yell.
Thank you for taking us through all this. Really interested to hear how you draw on your personal experiences, your family history, for some of your inspiration for your books. I'm just wondering, having read so many books in such a short space of time for the Women's Prize, are you aware of that shaping you as a writer as well? Because that must be quite an intense experience.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's massively intimidating is what it is. So I'm writing a novel at the moment, and I can say that I haven't done hardly any writing while I've been reading these books, because they're too good. You know, you read them and you think, oh my God, that's a great sentence, I can't do that. Or you feel intimidated by the power of the writing. You as a writer, you really want to be careful of bleed as well. If you read somebody, Donal Ryan's one is an Irish writer. I will not read him if I'm writing. I admire his work too much, and there's a similarity between our work, and I know it would bleed into, I'd end up writing like Donal Ryan for my work, so I can't read him. Also, he's too good and he's intimidating. So you do have to be careful when you read other people, but also it's massively inspiring. You know, you're reading these women and you think, I can do that. I want to do that. I want to have something to say about the world, and I want people to love my characters like I love the characters, say, in Elizabeth Strout, who's on the shortlist. You know, I read her, and I hadn't read any of her work before, and I read her and I was just thinking, and she writes about ordinary people in a small town, absolutely brilliant. And it gives you hope that those stories matter, It gives you a good idea of what, gives you an idea of a blueprint for a good story. Here's a good story and it's like this and I can do that. Gives you hope. Thank you.
Well, talking of inspiring women, thank you. You have been absolutely brilliant. Just to say thank you to Arts Keele and the very fabulous Kerry Jones, who just never stops to talk about another inspiring woman. To Dan up there, who's mic'd us up. Thank you, Dan. And to Ruth, who's doing book sales. Thank you very much. Kit, you're going to do some signing?
Yes.
If
yes.
you bought a book. And thank you to you two for coming along. It's like a Hawaii out there, so to actually come into a dark theatre this evening, we really appreciate it. Kit, you've been amazing. Thank you very, very much. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.